You know, there's a saying in business, good PR can make you and bad PR can break you. Well, thanks so much for coming out to meet Massey University's Head of PR, Dr. Chris Galloway, and three of the industry's leading communications professionals. We're here for Big Issues in Business, the PR edition. Now let's pretend this is Graham Norton, and you give me a big round of applause while I walk the short distance to the stage. Thank you. Thanks very much. Welcome along, welcome along. My name is Jesse Mulligan. Some of you may recognize. Our first guest speaker began her PR career in South Africa and started her own consultancy in 1987 before moving to New Zealand in 1996. In New Zealand, in Auckland, Deborah established the PR division at Bates Advertising. They left in December 2000 to establish her own company, the famous Pead PR, consumer-focused brand-building public relations consultancy. I don't know if you saw the recent Canvas magazine issue about her. They called her Auckland's most influential woman. In fact, I think there's a question mark after it, so Auckland's most influential woman. But the answer was yes. Spoiler alert. So please welcome to the stage, Deborah Pead.
Thanks, Jesse. When I was invited to come here tonight to speak about my PR disasters, I didn't know whether to be flattered or offended, because I'd far rather be talking about our PR triumphs. But nevertheless, I think the real disaster might be the fact that the case studies I've selected tonight, I see a few faces in the room that may be associated with them. So for the record, I'm claiming the Fifth Amendment right now, and I will hear no more of that. But anyway, back to PR disasters. I don't know if you've heard the one about the golfer, the animal activist, and the comedian who walk into the bar. Well, that last part's not really true. They didn't walk into a bar. They walked into my life, and they gave the seasoned PR trout a cardiac arrest that would have dropped that big fella from Game of Thrones. So let's talk about the golfer. Jack Nicklaus, pretty well-known name. I don't know much about golf, but I'm told he had a terrific swing. Unfortunately, his memory wasn't anywhere near as good as his swing, and I know all about that. So our client was New Zealand Mint, and in a world-first collaboration, they struck up a deal with Jack Nicklaus to mint his first coins. It was gold coins created by New Zealand Mint. 113 of them were to be produced, each one a nod to his tournament win on the PGA, which was a terrific 4 decades of success. They were cast in gold, elegantly presented in Remu boxes, shaped as a golf ball. They cost about 15 grand each, US. So our people talked to his people. We even got a quote from the great man himself. He said, "Golf has played an important part in my life, and I'm delighted to be associated with this exclusive collectible from the New Zealand Mint." And then the PR gods delivered us a gift. And the gift was, he was coming out to Kinloch Golf Course, Lake Taupo, beautiful golf course. I was there a few weeks back, and the lodge is even more spectacular. And so we came up with this publicity headline-grabbing stunt of ambushing the press conference and getting One News to play along with us and present him with the first coin, hot off the mint. This would be a great money shot. The visual would go globally, coins would sell. We pitched to One News. They loved the idea. They drove out to Kinloch. We spoke to his people. His people loved it as well. It was all set up. Then imagine the scene. In the press conference, the reporter asks a few questions and then presents him with the first coin. Silence. What coin? I don't know anything about a coin. Who the goddamn gave permission to use my image on this coin? We got national coverage, all right. Just not for the right reasons. And so much for the best laid plans. It all went wrong because although our people had talked to his people hadn't told the boss. So media attention shifted from coin to contract, and next thing there were hordes of media outside NZ Mint stores banging down the door and asking for an explanation. Here was the real story. But fortunately, we had done our due diligence. And in PR land, if you're going to stretch a contract and leverage a contract, exploit it if you will, you have to check the terms and conditions and see what you're allowed to. So I had seen the contract, I had seen it had been signed, and I knew what we were allowed to do. So instead of our client ducking for cover, we invited them in, client walking, client talking, gold poured, showed them the coins in production, and we still got the publicity. But Jack and New Zealand Mint, not so much friendly anymore. And also, while PR disaster was averted there, not so much with the animal activists and the comedian. The star was comedian Mike King, but I certainly wasn't laughing this time round. Look, let me just say, I have a lot of respect for Mike King. He's turned his life around. What he's doing for mental health now is admirable. But back in 2008, when he was an ambassador for NZ Pork, he was in a very volatile space. He was a colourful character and he was unpredictable. So when we picked up the New Zealand Pork account in 2008, Mike King came with it. I remember at the time recommending that NZ Pork invest in a comprehensive issues management plan to deal with that volatility, that colourful character, the unpredictability. The request was unheeded. I also remember the word king a lot in that plan, and in retrospect, I should have prefixed it with another word that began with F, because he certainly caused me a lot of trouble. You see, after 6 years for promoting NZ Pork, Mike's contract was terminated, and it didn't go down well with him. He was in a bad space, and he felt hard done by. And so what he did is he collaborated with animal rights activist SAFE, and he created an ambush that had the most spectacular results. So in PR land, activists and celebrity make for very powerful combinations, and boy did we feel it. King and SAFE visited one of the most extreme examples of bad pig farming that they could find, and under the cover of darkness, they recorded extensive images. These scenes were well documented in a Sunday exclusive on TV1 with a great build-up. The surprise was that King had turned turncoat and was now against the industry that he had represented for 6 years. The images were not good. The public were appalled. It was a very emotional topic. All hell broke loose. The PR team had a cardiac arrest. The media ran with the story and ran with the story. The client was on the hot seat, squirming under the heat of those camera lights. It wasn't a pretty sight. But it took a few days of furious message managing to try and calm that situation, because in a case like that, emotions are high and, as I say, all hell broke loose. And it's very hard to get any cut through in any point of view when that panic is on. But once it had calmed down, we eventually got a sense of perspective to the story. And the client managed to get the point of view across that what was shown was an extreme example. It wasn't indicative of the wider industry. There's certainly a lot of good farmers out there. And while we all aged through the process, on the upside, the sale of free-range pork accelerated, pig pens were dismantled, and the industry embarked on a much stronger code of policing its own members. And as a result, pig farming standards have been improved dramatically through the country. But we were totally blindsided. It was a full 48 hours of panic until we started seeing some balance to the story. So the learning there was the lack of planning, a lack of issues management plan, and no one had anticipated Mike's U-turn. Ironically, perhaps the best laid plans are at the core of successful public relations. It's about that planning for a desired outcome, putting together a strategy to achieve the plan, evaluating the risks, challenging those risks, knowing the right channels to use, assembling your troops to help you tell them the story, developing the material, securing those third-party endorsers are so important, and then driving the message. We felt the benefit of this detailed planning just 2 weeks ago when we announced the launch of Bargain Box. So for Bargain Box, who don't know it yet, is this new brand from the fabulous people behind My Food Bag. And while My Food Bag caters for individual preferences such as gluten-free, vegetarian, gourmet, Bargain Box is about delivering delicious, wholesome family meals. No fancy food, just the type of yummy food that families love and kids love. It's got all the benefit of Bargain Box, saving on the delivery, saving on the meal planning, the convenience, and it's all at a super affordable price. Apologies for the pitch, but it's sort of in the DNA. Anyway, the marketing team had planned really hard for Bargain Box with a very clear understanding of the target audience, which is families. Families, the building blocks of communities. And the families that had been involved in the extensive trials of this campaign were also used as the talent. We can see them there. Great image, lovely family, Pākehā kids, Maori kids, and Nadia Lim, for those who haven't noticed, is half Malaysian. So the launch was very well received, Bargain Box. And by the way, that thumb incident or the finger incident with Nadia, that was not designed. It was purely an accident. But despite the launch being very well received, there was one journalist who looked at this visual and suggested that the campaign was targeting brown families. And more to the point, we were blamed of reinforcing a racial stereotype by showing a picture of brown kids eating burgers. So the timeline between the direct line of questioning, sometimes aggressive questioning from the journalists, our feedback to the newspaper, and the story appearing was a pretty dramatic 12 hours with us rechecking every image, every visual, every message, every promotional message, in fact, every piece of collateral with the campaign. We then gathered quotes of support from our wide cultural diverse audience, and we used them, we had them as backup to help us demonstrate the diversity of the campaign. We were ready with our response, our defensive messaging, we had our social media calendar lined up, we had our comments, we had our talking points, and our client was primed. We took this insinuation very seriously. First of all, because it's not right. And secondly, we were at a loss to explain as to how this accusation could be made when we had been so thorough with our planning. So our troops were ready to fight this, and we were going to defend very hard if we needed to. Fortunately, in this case, which appeared right across Fairfax network, giving Bargain Box countrywide coverage, didn't provoke any outrage. In fact, the opposite happened, and this is where you love social media. The families we targeted in the campaign came out in defense of Bargain Box, and they accused the media of trying to beat up the old race card angle. And there were thousands of messages of support, either on the Facebook page, on Fairfax own stuff and Fairfax own web pages, and direct messages of support to Bargain Box. None of the other media picked it up, and so here's a case in point where not only did the media get it wrong, but we were so well prepared, and planning is everything in this case in point. Probably one of the biggest PR successes we've been involved with is the Vodafone New Zealand Music Awards. And I'll tell you this very briefly because it's another case in point of how planning is everything to avert a disaster. So hundreds of hours are poured into this event, even before one note is sung. And I'm not saying it's become the biggest night in New Zealand entertainment because of the PR. PR is just one of many production elements that stages this great event. But 15 years ago, this was known as the industry booze-up. And it was better known for the bad behavior of the musicians and the artists than it was of the quality of the music. But it's come a long way now, and that's because of intensive planning. That planning has now underpins the country's best-known annual event. It sells out every year. It's a showcase that's commensurate with the talent in the music industry, and public relations has been a driving force behind that. So just in wrapping up, why do we need PR? I guess the point is your brand already has a reputation, so that's a pretty good argument for managing it. Reputation is the brand's most valuable asset. It's worth a lot more than the value of the stock on your shelf. And PR is essentially a tool that not only builds brand, but also protects that reputation. We all know the need to communicate effectively with our stakeholders, being proactive in telling our markets, our customers, the general public, even our own staff members. We tell them about why we do it, how we do it, and what we do, and how we add value. And that's the reason why listed companies are required to regularly communicate to their stakeholders, because information is valuable, and whether your company is listed or not, communicating effectively not only raises your profile, it builds your reputation, and it attracts new business. And when things go wrong, well, the PR is there to help you. It helps identify the issues, rapidly address them, with accurate information, manages the communication to achieve the best possible outcomes. So always the publicist, but very often the bodyguard. Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. Yes, it's a testament to Deborah's influence that when a spokesperson cuts her own thumb off with a knife, the media asks if Deborah instructed her to do it. Very good.